Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scot McKay.
All right, gentlemen, welcome yet again to another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scot McKay, at Scot McKay on Twitter, on True Social, and Clubhouse. You can find me at Real Scot McKay on Instagram. And if you go to YouTube, search all the goodies by searching my name, ScotMcKay. The website is mountaintoppodcast.com. And gentlemen, if you are not a part of the Facebook group, it is the Mountaintop Summit. I want to thank you guys who are already a part of that group. And it's a growing group. More guys joining every day. We're glad to have you. We're having a lot of fun over there. If you want to join us, please search out the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook and come on board. Today, I am chatting with a new friend of mine. His name is Cole Rodgers with a D, and he is the head of School of Man. And the name of his book is School of Man, The Man's Guide to Living, Loving, and Legacy. And here's the topic that caught my eye. He is all about being better together as a man and a woman in relationship. And he talks about knowing your partner and getting the best out of her, and helping her get the best out of you in a relationship, which I thought was a fascinating topic, enough so that I invited him to be on board. And he also talks a lot about freedom as a lifestyle entrepreneur, which sounds familiar to me. So, Cole, welcome, man.
Scott, extremely grateful to be here, brother.
Gratitude is a good thing. It's underrated.
Absolutely. 100%. That's how I like to start off all the shows, is just with gratitude. I mean, that's how I start off my mornings and end my day, is with gratitude, because at the end of the day, I mean, goodness gracious, we're blessed to be brought together, and blessed to honestly, completely just set the world on fire. And I'm grateful for the adversity, of course, for the beautiful things, the pain. I think pain's such a beautiful teacher in life. Big believer in gratitude, and not enough people practice it. I think that if you were to be more of a go-giver, it's funny how life just reciprocates at the end of the day, Scott. So I'm thankful to be here, brother. I'm really thankful to be here.
Yeah, man. And I'm thankful to have you on board also. I think this is going to be a good conversation. The first thing I've already picked up on is you're not one of those guests I'm going to have to spoon feed content to, which I'm always grateful for, as are the guys in my audience. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of gratitude.
So if anything, I don't want to suck the oxygen out of the room. So yeah, I don't.
You could just put a period on the word suck, and that would have been enough.
Oh man, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be good stuff.
Is Jim Rome still doing sports talk radio? I don't think they carry him in San Antonio anymore, but he used to say, "Have a take and do not suck," was what he used to say.
Hilarious. No, I saw him on TV the other day, oddly enough, and I don't even watch TV. Like he was still doing sports talk radio.
Wow, man, he is like a guy who I thought had disappeared off the map suddenly. I didn't even notice. But anyway, that's what he used to say, and that's what we're saying right now. And I think it goes for everybody.
Do not suck.
Do not suck. Have a take and do not suck. And so far, you're doing wonderfully, my friend. All right. So you are a lifestyle entrepreneur. How do you define that? Because those guys have heard me talk about this, especially in the context of having personal freedom. The only way I know how to seed that conversation before I let you riff on it, my good man, is to say that, first of all, gratitude, in my mind, is one of the keys to true happiness. And another one is freedom. So many people 100%. Think they're living the American dream, quote unquote, when they're really just going to a soul crushing job, sitting in a cubicle, doing what they're told, making another company wealthy, taking home a steady paycheck and paying off their mortgage and
modern day slavery.
Payments. Yeah, something like that. So
that's all it is.
Talk to me, man. What's your idea of true freedom?
Oh, man, true freedom, memories and experiences always filter back. And we were talking about that before the show with our families. And so many of us, and you hit the nail on the head, live that box lifestyle. And I was no different 5-6 years ago. And we'll get into this about my relationship with my wife and just how far it's come in 11 years. And I'm a perfectly flawed man. There in and of itself is an art form of freedom, is being able to detach, to let go, to understanding thyself. Some of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. You can't do that living in the box lifestyle. You know, waking up, getting in the box, going to the box, aka the office, bringing your box lunch, checking the box, you know, doing the same thing over and over again. We've been brainwashed to think that, hey, let's retire at age 65. That's our retirement age. And then all of a sudden you look up, you didn't live and you just existed the entire time.
Tim Ferriss's deferred life plan.
100%. Yeah. I mean, he hit the nail on the head there. And oddly enough, just as we're having this conversation earlier this morning, I have a gentleman who reached out and he's interested in joining School of Man headquarters here in Central Arkansas. And I asked him that question. I said, what is your definition of freedom? Now he's 52. Now his response, well, I am 52 years old. I said, well, first of all, you're not free by just using those words. I look at myself that I'm getting younger while everybody else gets older. And across the table was his 18-year-old son listening to all this. And, he's built a business over 20 years, started it at 60,000. Now it's creeping up north of 5 million. It's a roofing business and it's a family business. But he has given his soul to that business. And anybody that's an entrepreneur knows exactly what that feels. What you obsess over, you eventually accomplish at the end of the day, good or bad, right? But along the way, what ends up happening is that you get so addicted to chasing achievement that it doesn't fill your cup. That's why you always hear like CEOs are lonely or executives are lonely or entrepreneurs are lonely. No one understands me. And so there's a multitude of discussion points there in what I consider freedom, but it goes back to how I started. When I can detach and I can let go and I can filter everything back from making memories and experiences with my family, right? But when I'm gone, I want to be immortal based upon the impact I have on them. And that is when you are truly a free man. When you break those shackles. I mean, you think about it, like we're taught all day long, like, hey, go through the fast food line, hit Amazon Prime, do this, do that, make these shortcuts. Don't trust the process. All you do is shackle yourself at the end of the day. And then you wake up and you're like, damn, like why in the hell do I continue to hit these loops in my life? And I can go on, Scott. So from freedom to me is just the memories, the experiences that I create with my family, my wife, being detached and letting go, knowing who I am at the core, and being in control of where my life is taking me. When you are owning every inch of that, my man, you truly do believe, and you start liberating yourself little by little by little. And that's one of the most freeing things that I constantly practice every day. You don't do it just one time. It's a rebirth process every day.
I think we have met each other as the two men in the entire continent of North America who actually do this. I mean, literally everybody I know, with the exception of a handful, to be fair, are living the corporate lifestyle. They're getting a job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've said this on this show before. We'll gear up our RV on a Wednesday afternoon and take off for 5 weeks. And my neighbors are just standing at the door scratching their head going, who are these people? Like Jerry Seinfeld would have. Well, as you were talking, several things came to mind other than that. The first one is the repo man can't come and repossess my African safari. It's there forever. Once I bought that prize, it was there to keep. Rust won't destroy the memories. It won't fall apart because it's a piece of junk. We have had that experience, and not only did we go see some animals and do some cool stuff and drive around in a Land Rover, our lives were changed. Our outlooks were changed. Our entire mindset was modified for the better by meeting the people, experiencing the culture, eating the food, seeing that what the daily news tells us isn't always accurate once you're out there with feet on the ground. Mm-hmm. All of that is incredibly powerful and incredibly powerful for the lives of our children. Instead of reading about the Ottoman Empire in a book, our kids have been to the freaking former Ottoman
They've experienced
Empire.
it.
Yeah, right. And you were talking about, I'm just going to put it this way. You mentioned Amazon and fast food. I think a lot of people are door dashing their way through life now.
100%. I call it the Amazon Prime mindset. That's what I call it. You hit a button and the package arrives next day, right? Like to your doorstep, and you get addicted to this. It's no different than when you scroll through Instagram and you begin putting filters on your life at the end of the day. But you're not willing to, everybody wants to talk about what they want to achieve. They want to go and do these trips and, create experiences and memories, but very few talk about what they're willing to sacrifice. And sacrifice and freedom go hand in hand.
Well, those are always last on the priority list. I really
100%.
want a new Corvette, or I really want to buy this thing. I really want to get a new TV so I can watch the rest of the world having fun doing those things I say I wish I was doing vicariously by sitting there. And, you know, the bigger our TVs get and the higher the quality, the QLED, the more tempting it is just to sit there and watch it all happen.
Yep.
DoorDash, like we mentioned, someone else makes your dinner for you. You don't even have to go pick it up. They bring it to you. You don't even have to buy a car in major cities. You just call Uber and they drive you there.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many young people who don't even have a driver's license. I don't know anybody under the age of 25 who knows how to drive a stick shift anymore. Oh,
100%. I mean, I have a niece that lives in California, though, just graduated from Stanford, and she just now got her driver's license.
Wow.
I mean, think about that.
I don't know why I'm amazed.
No, I don't either. I mean, but
it's like
you and I are on the same wavelength, you know, just talking about like lifestyles and entrepreneurship and freedom. I mean, again, at the end of the day, and I put this in our Slack, one of our Slack channels in School of Man, I said, look, guys, and we have a program going on right now called Fuel, and it stands for Freedom Unlocked Equals Lasting Change. Now, it's about healthy lifestyle, nutrition, sleep, recovery, hormones, the whole 9 yards, more intimacy with your spouse, all the stuff that, you know, men are looking for, right, to unlock the code. And I said, look, guys, quit looking for someone else to produce the results for you. Take responsibility for your results. I'm not responsible for that, right? It is you. It's not like your church is responsible for your spirituality. Your doctor is responsible for your health. Your therapist is responsible for your marriage. The sooner you own every inch of your life, the quicker you are going to be free. That's just how things work in this world.
That never used to be a lesson we had to teach.
100%, brother. And it's crazy that I'm having to teach it to grown-ass men.
Right.
Just like I'm teaching it to my 8 and 9-year-olds.
Well, you know, as you're talking, it's occurring to me just how strong the link is between the convenience culture of today that we've been talking about and the lack of emphasis on freedom anymore. You and I are both, you know, a little bit older than some of these youngins around here. We're not greenhorns anymore. And we can sense the freedoms being sapped away from us as Americans.
100%.
And the younger folks are completely indifferent to this, seemingly. It's like, oh, yeah, no big deal. They'll take care of me. They'll do more for me. Government is becoming DoorDash to the younger generation.
Well, and here's why I think that is, too, outside of we can go down a lot of different trails and paths with this, is that they don't have their own personal constitution. I mean, think about what our founding fathers have done. I mean, what they did.
Character.
Exactly. They don't have an ethos, a stand. And so when they are pressed, when adversity hits, when they're passed over for a job, and they've been brought up in this everybody gets a trophy mentality, guess what? I mean, all they do is constantly go back to the easy path, the easy button, the Amazon Prime button.
Whisper these 3 simple words into a woman's ear and she'll spread her legs for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, yeah, 100%. It's like, it was funny to me. I had my son and his little buddy over, and Landon comes in, he says, Dad, come here. Chalmers wants to ask you a question. I said, okay. He said, and Chalmers looks at me, these are 8-year-old boys. Said, Mr. Rodgers, how do I pick up women? Like, what's the fastest way to get a girlfriend, right? And it was funny and cute. But at the end of the day, I said, gentlemen, all I care about is you being who you are at the core. Let's just start there. And I said, as you age, you will learn along the way.
I know. I got to know the answer to an 8-year-old on how to pick up women. What did you tell him?
That's what I told him.
Oh, you stopped there.
I stopped there.
You let yourself off the hook, huh?
Yeah, basically I said, from what I have learned, that you just need to be you, brother. And that's what I told him. And that's just how I left it.
Well, unless being them isn't particularly attractive to women, then we have to do some heavy lifting.
True. I will deal with that when the time comes.
Are you curious what I would have told them?
Yeah.
Dating coach such that I am. Rule number 1 is you absolutely, positively have to genuinely like girls.
Yeah.
If you don't like them, they're not going to like you back. So if it becomes this game where you're trying to trick them into liking you because you want to kiss them or something, it's never going to end well for you. But if you're one of the few men out there who actually appreciates the company of female human beings, then you can almost do no wrong. Unless you're creepy and pushy.
Pure gold.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Pure gold.
You know, I had that talk, an entire afternoon I spent with my son just having that talk on girls, women, and sex when he was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't only teach him about the birds and the bees. By the way, I got to him in time, which was priceless, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He learned what sex really was.
Yeah.
But I also taught him how to relate to women and not be scared of them, that it was perfectly natural that he would be attracted to girls and they would be attracted to him in return.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the conversation is something that most dads dare not have with their kids. And yet at the same time, those same dads will say, well, I really wish my dad would have told me this stuff. So 100%. It's really this weird catch-22. Yeah,
we've already started walking down the path of the discussion around sex and spirituality because I have an older daughter. Well, she's 12 months older than Landon, and it just came up in conversation in all places, a Chick-fil-A line. And it was just me. Yeah, it was just me. I mean, they were getting the Lord's chicken, and that question just, boom, came up, and I handled it the best I could. And then my wife, she got back in town from North Carolina, and we addressed part one of the conversation. I'll say that.
Why is everybody always coming back from North Carolina nowadays?
I have no clue.
Everybody
That's where
goes
she's
and
from.
visits North Carolina. Oh, well, my parents are in North Carolina, and my siblings too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice place, actually. Underrated.
Beautiful state.
All right, so we're talking about freedom. We're talking about lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but throw on the table the simple fact that this all is actually related to our central topic du jour, right? Mm-hmm. Which is knowing your partner and getting the best out of others. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, Cole, you must be like me if you're living the same kind of life and you've structured it the same way, engineered it the same way, because it does take intentional mentality to make it happen. Otherwise, you'll fall into the trap like everybody else. I do not suffer in a world where I don't ever see my kids but like 30 seconds a day, and I don't spend quality time with my spouse. If anything, when COVID hit, people were asking me, how in the world can you and your kids and your wife be cooped up together all day without driving each other nuts? And we're like, well, we were doing this before COVID. We actually wait for it, like each other. We find each other interesting. We do things together. This is a lifestyle we've built for ourselves. So when you're around someone, you're either going to drive them nuts or you're going to be a catalyst for the betterment of each other. Either you're growing or you're dying, just like your business.
Oh, that's 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 100%. And it's one of those that I believe you hit the nail on the head with. When you become an intentional man versus a conditional man, in your relationships, your marriage, your body, the whole 9 yards, right? It changes the game, but you have to be consistent with it because that's where the credibility ultimately forms, especially within your relationships, especially with your wife.
Yeah, inconsistency in the context of a relationship is the kiss of death because your wife and your kids will never feel safe around you.
Well, and I've been that guy.
Know when to duck. You've been that guy.
I've 100% have been that guy. And that's what led me to establish School of Man. I didn't just wake up one day and just say, hey, this is a great business plan, considering there's 1,000 other men's groups out there. No, I mean, it was built out of pain because I left my wife in the therapist office crying for the umpteenth time because I basically was caught in another lie with her. And I was benchmarking myself, Scott, on the big three: sex, athletics, and money. AKA power, right? If I had all three of those crown jewels, then I was doing a good job. I thought I was, at least. But first 5-6 years of my marriage, I was an absent father. And all I could think about was just achievement, grow this business. And I said it, I say it all the time. You sell your soul to your business or whatever it is that you're doing, it's a very high price to get it back. And a lot of guys aren't willing to pay the price. And those first 5-6 years of my marriage, I mean, it started off with our rehearsal night. I go burn down the town with my boys. And when I went through school, Adderall became a big deal. I dabbled in cocaine and I was always looking for an edge. But I was the guy that could put a mask on and go present himself like he's completely squared away. Captain of the basketball team, baseball team, high performer, high producer. And when I was 18, I was actually saving myself for marriage, but my girlfriend and myself at the time, we lost our virginity to each other, and you felt that guilt. Well, she pretty much just laid that guilt on me, and it just ripped a hole in my heart. And I'll never forget being in my 94 short bed Chevy truck picking up our Christmas tree with my father, because that's a big deal in my family. And I just bust out crying, brother. And almost snot bubbles coming out of the nose. That's how wounded I was. And that was a wound that I put a Band-Aid on for a long time. I would not let any female get very, very close to me. In fact, what ended up happening was I became a womanizer. And, I go and I get into the professional world at 21, 22, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, start making a little bit of money, live by an ethos, hang out with the owls at night. You have to soar with the eagles in the morning. And your network as a man determines your net worth. It's the law of the mirror. We've all heard about it, right? But I was climbing the sales board, the leaderboard at the company that I was working for at the time. And all I was doing was spending majority of my time in downtown Nashville on the weekends, traveling the entire state of Tennessee. And this was a pattern. And I was running. You're either running towards something or away from something. I would not hold down a serious relationship. And then I met Ashley in North Carolina, and I met her on eHarmony because I was tired of living in the bars. And this was when I was 27, 28. And I thought on paper that I was successful, but I was working 80 hours a week. There was no freedom there. And this was the sacrifices that I was paying at the time to learn things about myself and expand my potential, all the things that you hear. But I meet Ashley, immediately connected with her, said, you know what, if I bring her across the Mississippi to Central Arkansas, this will be the girl that I eventually marry. And I did. But what I did not do is tell her my whole story. And that's typical. Vulnerability is a hard thing for a lot of us. And I'm a super vulnerable guy now. I wasn't at the time. But that is where the dominoes started to fall, these masks. And I decided to go ahead and launch my own business. Took a pay cut that was half of what I was making. Asked her to marry me, moved her halfway across the country from the beach. I took a girl from the beach to a landlocked state, and things started to crumble little by little by little. I don't think any of us wake up and want to ruin a marriage or a relationship or anything. It's just little by little by little. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that night of the rehearsal dinner, Adderall, hey, it's your last night as a single man. Go hard, brother. Go hard. Didn't go to sleep that entire night. I knock on her door around midnight, 1 o'clock, trying to go get some play. I bounced off the bed because I was so drunk and fall into the floor, and she is just bawling her eyes out. That's how I started off my marriage day. Woke up, took some more Adderall, went into the wedding, had a good time. We danced, we partied, we had just a blast and made some great memories. We were going to Costa Rica for our honeymoon, and I thought that, hey, that entire week's about sex. We've been living this honeymoon phase for a long time. It's fun, it's exciting, it's adventurous, so on and so forth. Well, it was that time of the month for Ashley. So, hey, if you can't have sex, figure out other ways to do things. Well, she wasn't down because I didn't realize she was taken advantage of back when she was in college. So she had some wounds on her heart that she had put a lot of Band-Aids and duct tape on. Well, I stormed out and left her in the shower and went and got blitzed at the bar. That's how I started off my marriage. And then, lo and behold, we get back, and I just say, I don't think this is going to work. And then for the next 5 years, we grinded. And it was one of those deals that she gets pregnant with Ava Madison. Ava Madison flatlines on the operating table. All I knew what to do was go back into my phone, my emails, go produce, because I had no income coming in. At one point in time, I had to return a fucking barbecue magazine to Lowe's because I couldn't afford it, because we needed the money to pay for formula for Ava Madison. And then following 12 months after Ava Madison came Landon Cole. I was in bukus of debt, healthcare debt. While this entire time, I did not know how to be a husband. I did not know how to be better together. It was about me. Plain and simple. All about me. I'm going to go get the money, and when the bank account's full, you should love me. All this time, I was hiding little bits of Adderall underneath the sink. And, there was at one point in time, I did cocaine while she was in the other room, went out and partied, came back, filled up a cup of coffee to act like nothing ever happened. She was pregnant with my son at that time. Those things started adding up. And what ended up really happening, and this is what I said, I think at the beginning, and this is where I'm going to the better together piece, is she never quit on me. She was put in my life for a reason. She never quit on me. She's always let me chase my dreams, and she loves me just unconditionally. Just truly a rare individual. But I saw things going south, and I just got super tired of staring back at the man that was in the mirror staring at me.
Well, you weren't doing your job as a man.
No.
And it does. It weighs on you like an anchor.
It does. And everything started with the business to grow to 10x itself. But I wasn't happy. There was no joy. I mean, in the next room, my wife and I had a sexless marriage. There was no connection, right? We were doing things just to make it through. And then finally we get into therapy. And finally I started working on myself. I started really digging in. And I started confronting the hard shit that I was avoiding. And then we would come together and we'd do therapy together. And we finally found someone that truly got us. JC McDaniel absolutely saved my life. And for 2 years, went to work. Then I go through a Hell Week simulation with the SEALs. And this is where things drastically changed. My teammate died at my feet. And this is what I thought was where the whole turning point was. I was going through this Hell Week simulation. There was 9 of us that made it out of 50. We beat out Bud's candidates, and then my teammate dies at my feet, and he's very close to me, as he was with the other guys. Ashley comes running up. She sees this. This man, had 2 boys, a wife back in New York. And I remember driving off like, what the hell just happened? I hadn't been asleep for a few days. Like, what the hell just happened? A week later, Scott, a Christian radio show, asked me to come on. And at the time, I didn't believe in God and I didn't believe in Christ. So I just came on and I just told my story in a long form, like the whole thing, not a condensed version, whole thing. Well, the only person that had never heard that story, even in therapy, was Ashley, because I did not want to disappoint her. I was ashamed, right? So I would always sidestep things. I would always white lie to her. That was my greatest addiction to her. I would not ever tell her 100% of the truth. So we weren't better together, and it was because it was at my own hands. Well, that was my 3rd strike with her, and J.C. McDaniel looked at me, and he knife-handed me, combat Marine, and he says, I can't do anything more for you. She's crying on the other end of the couch. And basically, he knife-handed me. He said, unfuck yourself, brother. He said, I can't save you. And that pain I still carry with me today, and it's the good side of pain. And Kurt, who passed at my feet, it was crazy how that man has changed my life. He gave me 0 excuses, 0 outs. And I got very disenfranchised after that because I was going to lose everything that I built, and I was really going to get serious about reclaiming things, being reborn as a man, right? Or I was just going to sit there and quit and play the woe is me game, and that's just not my style. And Ashley was headed back east to North Carolina with the kids. And that's really these past 5 or 6 years. It's incredible. I mean, as of last night, it went from a sexless marriage to a marriage full of intimacy. Laughter, right? Being able to share the hard stuff, being vulnerable with one another. And a lot of that came through as I started building School of Man is through my network. Your network determines your net worth. So when you're the best in the room, you have to find a new room. And
Norman Schwarzkopf.
Yeah. And then when you are good at something, there's always someone better at you in another area. And that's just what I decided to do, Scott. And that's really what's helped reclaim my relationship with Ashley and being a unified front. It's been a very spiritual, not easy, perfectly flawed journey in my marriage, 100%.
It's occurring to me that I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 55. And I remember the time in America before the Reagan years.
Mm-hmm.
And the Reagan years were characterized by extreme growth in the United States. Mm-hmm. And the 80s were basically a massive release of me first mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody started almost worshiping selfhood. And we've never gotten down from that. And culminating in the recent lockdowns due to COVID-19, I think people have become more self-oriented, more inwardly focused than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And we were already, well, just to use the turn of phrase, at pandemic proportions with that problem before COVID-19. And one of the things that occurred to me during the pandemic was that a lot of people actually love this. They don't have to deal with people at all anymore.
Yep.
It's not they have to stay at home. They get to stay at home and not see other people. Social media, I predicted 10 years ago, was going to be the downfall of Western culture. And unfortunately, that was a prescient concept. I really think it's happening. People are so selfish and they complain so much, yet they're so blessed and so insulated at the same time. We don't know how to relate to human beings apart from the anonymity of the internet anymore. And of course, that brings out the worst in everybody. So this idea of trying to bring out the best in someone else has been hamstrung by a mindset that we've been taught how to celebrate in the United States and Canada and certainly Western Europe, which is, hey, it's all about you, man. Look out for number one. Everybody else can keep their hands off my stack. And so we go into marriage relationships thinking, what can this person do for me? When in the past, it was almost like, to echo John F. Kennedy, ask not what your spouse could do for you. Ask what you can do for your spouse. What can a man do for his family? And the fact that there's glory in that there's heroism in that there's deep satisfaction in being the man of the house, being the leader, providing and protecting, above and beyond whatever you're going to scrape into your own corner in the context of a relationship and a family, it's just been lost in modern culture. How do we reclaim that? Is it just spending time together? Is it just really meditating? Is it getting a wake-up call somehow?
Man, here's what hit me like a ton of bricks. And this is where things really started to click with me, is when I started buying into the ethos, reciprocate without expecting anything in return. And that's the hardest thing that anybody can do, to be honest with you, just based upon what you just said, right?
You kind of have to fly by instruments there for a while till you realize just how fulfilling it really is. You do.
And it was one of those that, and I really go back to what I said. I had to detach and I had to let go. You know, control is one of my biggest insecurities. I want control. And when I'm not in control, I feel very insecure. I've got dragon energy, as my wife likes to say.
Nice.
And when I started letting go and I started detaching and I started chasing fulfillment over achievement, and I just started reciprocating with her, it's like reverse engineered death by 1,000 paper cuts in your relationship, honestly.
It's kind of like walking it all back intentionally.
Yeah, and it is. And for me, like, that was my path, and that is my path. That's how I teach. That's how I connect. And I'm not regretful of any of it, believe it or not. And it's helped me become a better husband and a better father. The greatest thing was 2 weeks ago, my daughter lays her head on my shoulder and says, "Dad, you're the best man on the planet."
Which is what every daughter should be able to say to her.
100%. And she watches intently how I treat her mother now. She didn't see what we went through the first 6 years, and that's okay. But Ashley and I are also open books with our children.
Well, you know, it's like John Mayer said, your daughter will love like you do.
Yeah.
In that song. It's such a beautiful song, and women really love that song in particular. A lot of guys are scratching their heads when they listened to it, you know, when it came out back in the day. But there's really this very deep, almost sacred responsibility. Well, it is a sacred responsibility that fathers have to model manhood for daughters as well as sons. A lot of guys, you know, they're like, well, I want to have a son. I want to have a mini-me, a chip off the old block, et cetera, et cetera. But that daughter of yours is watching who you are and who you're becoming, and she will marry that guy someday. That will be her normal idea of what a man should be like.
100%.
It's a huge responsibility, but it's a beautiful, wonderful.
Yeah. You have to go through it to get to it, my man. And it's, that's just my take on better together, is that you are in those crucible moments together and you're willing to use them for the greater good.
And you don't shy away from them. You walk into them.
No, you walk straight through the fire. You have to. You have to, because and I'll end on this, the avoidance of pain is only going to create more pain. And that's the truth. And those are lessons that I've had to learn the hard way.
And as much as we would like for it to be the case in middle class Western culture, you're not going to avoid pain in this life.
100%.
It'll sneak up on you and hit you. And you got to be ready for it. And you're better equipped to handle it together than as a group of individuals living under one roof. Fantastic.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, well, we're out of time here. This has been a fantastic conversation. We could have gone on and on, so I'm going to cordially invite you to come back sometime in the near future where we can pick up.
Well, I owe you, my man. I do owe you. So I'm very grateful, and I appreciate you being patient with me. So I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity.
Yes, likewise, my friend. His name is Cole Rodgers. The name of his book is School of Man, The Man's Guide to Living, Loving, and Legacy. And I've put that at the top of my Amazon storefront, which you can visit by going to mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon. And you can also go to schoolofman.live, which is Cole Rodgers' website, where you'll learn all about his coaching and all about his programs and everything he does for men who are striving to be better men, just like every man who listens to this show is. And you can go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Cole, C-O-L-E, and be magically transported to that website and check it all out for yourself. Cole Rodgers, thank you so much for joining us today from the great state of Arkansas, which is also underrated in its beauty, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Well, thank you for making me a better man today, brother.
Yeah, likewise. This has been a great show. I think the guys are really going to appreciate it. And gentlemen, if you have not been to mountaintoppodcast.com, here's the deal. You are missing out not only on downloads of a free book I have called Sticking Point Solved, which I will practically guarantee you will cover just about any sticking point any man could encounter in dating and relationships, relating to women in general, at least on some level. And you can also see what's up with the latest masterclass. The one that we've done most recently, just a couple days ago, as this show is dropping actually, was on how to stop settling for the wrong woman and choose the right one instead. And that is one of the most important decisions you will ever make in this life. And we covered that in the most recent masterclass. It was fantastic. We hit the ground running. It changed lives. You can check out all the masterclasses by going to mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. Also, please check out our sponsors, which include Jocko Willink's company Origin in Maine, and also Hero Soap, and the guys over at Keyport. When you partake of any of their products, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get an additional 10% off at checkout. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.